In the end, he obviously did himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
The room froze. Everyone there understood what had just happened. A comedian had done the unthinkable. He'd named it, out loud, in front of them.
Say names because I don't want to get sued. And I don't want to be dead.
An Oscar winner, afraid for his life, not metaphorically, literally terrified of what happens when you speak the truth about Hollywood's most powerful people.
I feel like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress.
For over a decade, one man warned us, over and over, while everyone laughed and called him crazy. But here's what nobody is connecting. Ricky and Katt weren't just making noise. They were the same warning, the same message, the same system. And now, the walls are collapsing. Two men, two different platforms, same urgent message about Hollywood's darkest secret. When you hear the name Katt Williams, most people think of comedy specials. They think of a controversial figure who's been dismissed, mocked, and labeled as erratic by mainstream media. But what if everything you were told about Katt Williams was designed to make you ignore what he was actually saying? Katt Williams didn't emerge out of nowhere with these warnings. He's been in this industry since he was 14 years old. He's watched it from the inside. He's seen the machinery up close. And starting over a decade ago, he began to tell us what he saw.
I've been in show business since I was 14, and I've heard the stories of what happens, and I've seen these kinds of things play out in front of me.
But Katt wasn't alone in seeing it. Across the industry, other insiders were witnessing the same system. They were watching the same pattern repeat endlessly. Young talent enters the machine. They get everything they're promised: money, fame, opportunity. And then they have to pay a price that nobody talks about publicly. Not until Katt started talking about it. The difference between Katt and most others was simple. He refused to stay silent.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress.
Think about that statement. Deliberately being put through stress. Not accidental pressure. Deliberate, intentional, calculated stress designed to break someone down, to make them compliant, to make them accept the system, because the alternative was total destruction. But Katt kept speaking. While they called him crazy, while his career suffered, while former friends distanced themselves, he kept warning us. Then, in January 2020, something shifted. A different kind of whistleblower stepped into the spotlight. Not through a podcast or a comedy special, but through the biggest televised event in the entertainment industry.
The 200 richest people in the room, or the 200 million people watching at home.
Ricky made a choice that night. He didn't play to the room. He didn't perform for the moguls and executives and producers sitting in front of him. He performed for the viewers at home, the people who needed to hear the truth. And once he made that choice, he went all the way.
In the end, he obviously did himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein. Shut up! I know he's your friend, but I don't care.
There it was, in front of everyone. Ricky didn't joke around it. He didn't make it ambiguous. He stood on the stage of the most prestigious awards show in entertainment and told the people in that room that he knew what they'd been protecting. He knew who their friends were, and he didn't care about the consequences. The people sitting in that audience understood. Ellen DeGeneres was there. Oprah Winfrey was there. Dozens of others who had benefited from a system built on silence and complicity were sitting in that room, hearing Ricky tell them that the game was up. What neither Ricky nor Katt knew that night was that they'd triggered something that couldn't be undone. Within months, the truth they were warning about would start exploding into public view. And by 2024, when the Epstein files finally leaked, the people they were warning would make a choice that would reveal everything. When Katt Williams talks about celebrities selling their souls, most people dismiss it as metaphor, conspiracy theory, Hollywood mythology designed to sound mysterious and dark. But what if it's not a metaphor at all? What if selling your soul is the most literal thing that happens in this industry? Throughout the late 1990s and 2000s, a pattern emerged that nobody wanted to talk about publicly. A young actor or actress would break through. Their career would skyrocket. They'd get the role everyone wanted, the record deal, the sponsorships. They'd reach a level most people only dream about. And then something would shift. They'd have a public meltdown. They'd go to rehab. They'd make cryptic statements about the industry. Some of them would literally crack on camera, making strange gestures and talking about secret symbols that viewers didn't understand.
It is the secret symbol of the Illuminati.
The audience laughed, the hosts played along, but Jim Carrey wasn't joking. He was making a desperate attempt to warn people using the only tools available to a celebrity, humor as a shield. He was telling the world that there was a price to playing at the highest level of this industry, a price that required you to compromise something fundamental about who you are. Now, here's what the mainstream narrative won't tell you. This wasn't about talent. This wasn't about skill or merit. This was about access, and access required compromise.
Like, they accepted this deal with the devil. Like, the devil's gonna make you a star if you suck.
And apparently that's what he would do.
Joe Rogan understands this better than almost anyone in the industry. He's seen it from multiple angles, as a comedian, as a podcast host, as someone with enough independence to speak freely without destroying his career. And according to multiple sources who've spoken publicly, the soul selling works like this. You get compromised, filmed doing things that would destroy your career if they ever came out, engaging in acts that cross lines you never thought you'd cross. And once that footage exists, once they have that leverage, you belong to them forever. It's not supernatural, it's systematic. It's blackmail dressed up in glamorous clothing.
I think that there's, sacrifices going on every day in Los Angeles.
When an Oscar-winning screenwriter casually mentions sacrifices happening daily in Los Angeles, we need to understand he's not speaking metaphorically. He's talking about real people being real sacrifices to a real system. And the machinery of that system, it has gatekeepers, controllers, people who decide who gets access and what they have to give up to get it. For decades, those gatekeepers operated with complete impunity. They knew nobody would expose them because the cost of exposure was too high. Your career would end, your reputation would be destroyed, you might face legal consequences, or worse. But there was one group of people who posed a unique threat to that system: comedians. This is crucial to understanding why Katt Williams and Ricky Gervais were so dangerous to the people protecting this system. Comedians operate in a unique space in entertainment. They're expected to push boundaries. They're expected to say things that others won't say. They're protected by a cultural understanding that comedy is where dark truths get told through the shield of humor. That shield made Katt incredibly dangerous. For over a decade, Katt Williams used his platform to warn about the gatekeepers. He talked about how certain people controlled access to success in the Black entertainment community. He talked about how comedians were forced into compromising situations. He talked about what happens when you refuse to play the game. And the industry's response? They called him crazy. They dismissed him. They marginalized him. They did everything they could to make sure nobody took him seriously. But he kept talking anyway. One comedian walked away from $100 million because he saw the trap. That comedian was Dave Chappelle. And Dave's story is essential to understanding what Katt was really warning us about. Dave Chappelle was offered $100 million to continue his show. He was at the absolute peak of his career. His show was the hottest thing on television. He had everything the industry promised, and he walked away. Not just from the money, from the country. He fled to Africa.
Put a lump of salt in a hole, and they wait for the baboon. The baboon comes, sticks his hand in the hole, grabs the salt. Salt makes his hand bigger, and he's trapped. He can't get his hand out. Now, if he's smart, all he does is let go of the salt. Baboon doesn't want to let go of the salt.
Dave understood something that most people in entertainment never figure out. The money is the trap. The fame is the trap. The opportunities they're offering aren't gifts. They're baited hooks designed to compromise you so thoroughly that you can never escape. Dave let go of the salt and lived to tell about it. But most people don't let go. Oprah didn't let go. Ellen didn't let go. They grabbed the salt. They accumulated more and more power. They rose higher and higher in the system. And for years, decades even, it worked. The problem is, you can only compromise yourself so many times before you become part of the machinery. Before you're not just benefiting from the system, but actively maintaining it. Before you're not just complicit, you're a facilitator.
Much bigger than money, though, Dave. It's so much bigger than money.
Oh no, it was bigger.
Notice what Oprah does here. Instead of understanding Dave's perspective, instead of recognizing that he was trying to escape a trap, she diminishes his concern. She makes it about something lofty and spiritual and abstract. It's bigger than money. But Dave wasn't talking about money being important. He was talking about money being the instrument of control. And Oprah couldn't comprehend that because she'd already accepted the trap. She was already part of the machine. That was the crucial difference. Dave saw the trap and rejected it. Oprah saw the trap and embraced it. Implied clip about Oprah's connections to Harvey Weinstein and the rumors she allegedly knew about. Now we need to understand the actual structure of this system, because it's not just about individual predators like Weinstein or Diddy. That's the trap the mainstream narrative tries to lead you into. Focus on the individual bad actors. Remove them. The problem is solved. But that's not how this works. The system that Katt has been warning about for over a decade isn't built on individuals. It's built on networks, on gatekeepers, on a coordinated group of people who control access, control opportunities, and control the narratives about who gets successful and what they have to give up to get there. At the center of that network, for decades, were names that kept appearing everywhere. Ellen DeGeneres, Oprah Winfrey, and others who positioned themselves as allies and supporters while actually facilitating connections to the people doing the predating.
There is an arrogance that some stars had, like particularly in the 90s. When I first came to Hollywood, and this is like really evident for me because I was not a star, but I was on a television show. So I got to be around a lot of stars. And there was a way that some of them would treat you. They would let you know that you are subhuman. You are below them.
Seal called out Oprah directly after the Weinstein scandal broke. He was pointing at something specific. He was saying that Oprah's connections to predators weren't accidents. They weren't coincidences. They were evidence of her role in the system. Here's what the data shows. Every major predator exposed in the last decade, Oprah was photographed with them. She called them friends. She promoted them. She facilitated introductions. Harvey Weinstein. She was photographed with him dozens of times. They were friends. Jeffrey Epstein. She was photographed with him multiple times. She hosted him on her show. She celebrated his success. Diddy, same pattern. Friend, supporter, ally. It's not coincidence when one person appears in photos with every predator that gets exposed. It's pattern. And patterns point to something systematic. And Ellen's story was actually darker.
We definitely received substantial evidence that he was involved in trafficking young women and children to the Virgin Islands for a very long period of time through our airport, through his private jet. And then he would, by helicopter or sometimes boat, would then transport them over to Little St. James.
Ellen DeGeneres built her empire on a platform, a talk show that became one of the most powerful positions in entertainment. She had access to celebrities, politicians, world leaders. She used that platform not just to become famous, but to build a network. According to multiple sources who've spoken publicly, Ellen wasn't just a talk show host. She was a connector. She introduced people, she facilitated relationships, she attended private parties where the real business of the industry happened. And according to accounts from industry insiders, she was actively helping to filter young talent into the system. The connection between Ellen and Oprah went deeper than friendship or professional respect. They were part of the same network. They attended the same events. They knew the same people. They benefited from the same system. And when the heat started turning up, when Ricky stood on that stage and named Epstein, they both understood what was coming. To understand why Ellen and Oprah's behavior becomes so important, we need to understand the actual mechanics of the system that Katt Williams has been describing. The system has layers. At the bottom are the vulnerable, young actors, aspiring musicians, people desperate to break into entertainment. They have talent, ambition, dreams. They're told that if they work hard and network and play the game, they can make it. They're partially right. They can make it, but making it comes with a price.
He owns a private island. That's an island over a mile away from St. Thomas, the main island. And it's out there and it's isolated. He purchases that, right? Then he owns the jet that flew in to the airport. It's under a name of one of the front companies that actually has been named in our complaint, but it's him. He's the member of that LLC. And he owns the helicopter and the boats that took or transported him and the women and children over to the island.
When we talk about Jeffrey Epstein, we talk about him like he was an isolated criminal, one bad man doing horrific things. But the files show something different. They show that Epstein was part of a coordinated network involving dozens, maybe hundreds of powerful people. Epstein's operation was designed for one specific purpose: to compromise powerful people and hold that leverage over them forever. Implied reference. Chris Tucker was asked about his name on Epstein's flight list and confirmed he did go on that flight. The island, the jets, the boats, the isolation. It was all engineered, designed, built specifically so that once you were there, you couldn't escape. And who was visiting this island? Who was on those flight logs? Hollywood executives, entertainment industry figures, people whose names would be protected when the scandal eventually came out. Don't let your kids get into acting. Do not let your kids get into that. The industry preys on children. The parents know, the managers know, the agents know, everyone on set knows, but they stay silent because speaking up means ending your career or worse. What the Epstein files revealed was that this network connected the worlds of politics, finance, and entertainment. These weren't separate circles. They were all part of the same operation, and the people who participated, they're still out there, still powerful, still protected. But here's the part that ties directly to Ellen and Oprah. The gatekeepers in Hollywood weren't just passive observers of this system. They were active facilitators. They were helping to filter young talent into the system. They were making introductions. They were legitimizing the predators by associating with them publicly.
If he had a harassment claim against him, It was like
It was a thing for him.
yes, like he had so many claims. That's like first offense was 100,000, second offense
Oh my
was
God.
250,000, third offense was $750,000, fourth offense was $1 million.
Joe is using the word trafficking here, not metaphorically. Literally trafficking children for the benefit of predators. And Harvey Weinstein had it built into his contract. Harvey Weinstein literally had a payment schedule for sexual harassment claims written into his employment contract. The studio knew, they budgeted for it. They accepted it as a cost of doing business. This is what systemic abuse looks like. It's not hidden behind closed doors and denied by the powerful. It's institutionalized, it's accepted, it's normalized. And the gatekeepers, the Oprahs and Ellens of the world, they were benefiting from that system. They were part of the machinery that kept it running. Now, here's what nobody was connecting until Ricky stood on that stage and warned them. In 2020, Ricky Gervais issued that warning in front of everyone who mattered. He told them their secrets weren't safe. He told them that someone was watching. He told them that the walls were closing in. And then something unprecedented happened. Celebrities, people who had built their entire careers on visibility, on media attention, on constant presence, suddenly started disappearing. It started slowly. Ellen's show ended. She gave vague explanations about wanting to focus on personal projects. But what actually happened was calculated. She and her wife began selling properties and relocating to a country with one very specific characteristic: no extradition treaty with the United States. That's not a lifestyle decision. That's an exit strategy. Oprah, who had been the face of media for 4 decades, suddenly reduced her public appearances dramatically. She's been spotted in multiple countries, never staying in one place too long, always prepared to move. Tom Hanks, whose name appeared in the Epstein files in connections he's never explained, started canceling public appearances. Leonardo DiCaprio, whose name appeared multiple times in Epstein correspondence, went quiet. Richard Gere sold his Connecticut estate at a significant loss and relocated to Spain. You don't sell property at a loss as a lifestyle choice. That's emergency evacuation. Ryan Gosling and Eva Mendes are reportedly preparing a move to London. All of this happened within months of the Epstein files leaking. All of it followed the same pattern. All of it pointed to the same conclusion. They were running. He stood on that stage and told the truth. He named the devil. He warned the people in that room. Ricky had warned them, and once he did, once the exposure started, they understood that the network that had protected them for so long was collapsing. The silence that had kept this system running for decades was breaking apart. The files that had been sealed were coming out. The names that had been protected were being revealed. And the people who were most exposed, the people who had benefited the most from the system, they made a choice. They ran. So where do we stand now? The Epstein files are still coming out. Thousands of pages, hundreds of names. Each redaction that gets removed reveals another connection, another network member, another person who benefited from a system built on abuse. The question isn't whether Ellen and Oprah were connected to this system. The evidence already shows they were. The question is, what happens when the remaining files drop, when every redacted name is revealed, when the full scope of the network becomes impossible to ignore? Will law enforcement pursue extradition? Will countries honor requests to return people who are facing charges? Will the network, finally exposed and fractured, turn on each other to save themselves? These are the questions that keep industry insiders up at night. But there's one thing we know for certain. The people who built careers on silence and complicity didn't stay around to answer those questions. They ran, and their running is proof.
I wasn't crazy, but it's incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a lot of instances, I was deliberately being put through stress.
Katt Williams spent over a decade warning us. While everyone laughed and called him crazy, he kept speaking. He kept pointing at the system. He kept naming the gatekeepers. And Ricky Gervais, in a moment of incredible courage, stood on the stage of the Golden Globes and backed him up. In front of everyone who mattered, in front of everyone who was complicit, Ricky told them their secrets weren't safe, and he was right. Now, as the walls continue to collapse and more people realize what was actually happening in that industry, as the evidence keeps mounting and the narrative becomes impossible to deny, we're finally starting to understand something that Katt knew all along. He wasn't crazy, he was prophetic. The entertainment industry doesn't want you to know the truth about how it really works. It doesn't want you to understand that talent isn't enough, that success requires compromise, that the price of fame is often your soul. But Katt told us anyway. Ricky warned them. And now, the evidence is everywhere if you're willing to see it. The question now isn't whether this happened. The evidence is overwhelming. The question is, what do we do with what we know? Do we keep consuming content from people we know benefited from a predatory system? Do we keep elevating platforms controlled by people who facilitated abuse? Or do we demand accountability? Do we insist on transparency? Do we refuse to participate in an industry that preys on the vulnerable? That choice is up to us. But one thing is certain, Katt Williams and Ricky Gervais tried to warn us. And for anyone paying attention, the evidence supports everything they said.